15 minute mark. For these guys, it's a completely different story. We have seen 4 games between them. Neither player was able to break the deadlock. Is that an expression?
Absolutely, yeah. Breaking the deadlock.
So I think the player that gets black will be happy, but he doesn't want to have too big and it all comes back again.
We do have the bids. We do have the bids, and
oh my God,
this is nuts. So I'm going to call this as correct for my prediction. By the way, we have Magnus bidding, or Hikaru bidding rather, 8 minutes and 59 seconds, and Magnus bidding 8 minutes 58 seconds. So we do have a 1 second differential. Magnus will start with the black pieces with 8:58 in the clock. What a crazy bid from both these guys. 1 second difference. 1 second difference in their bids.
So wild. That's completely insane. And it's also insane to see that the time that both players were comfortable with playing with black is pretty much the same. They gave it some thought, but I mean, 1 second difference between them. That's crazy.
What if, yesterday Hikaru bid 928 to avoid the scenario, because he could have bid 929, right? But he bid 928. So he could have foreseeably bid 858 today. What is the rule if that happens? What do you even do? A second bid? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Right? What would have happened? I mean, I guess, I'm not even sure, and I'm just guessing here, I'm not even sure there's precedent for that, just because it probably has never happened, that the players bid the same amount. So I have no idea what would have happened if they had the same, but I think it would have been possible. And we do have the game. Hopefully they did not put increment on the clock. We saw that happen yesterday in the game with Hikaru and Wesley So. But now Hikaru is in a must-win situation. It's the Armageddon. Magnus starts with 8:58, no increment on the clock. 6 minute time rematch for Hikaru.
It's a big time difference. 6 minutes is a lot. I see a lot of people in the chat unhappy about Hikaru getting white. I don't know. I know I was saying I think both players would be happy to be black, but I thought around the 10-minute mark. This is a minute less, and a minute in that time control makes a big difference. So I'm very curious to see, what approach will Hikaru take, but I think we're in for a thrilling game here.
Yes, and I don't know if you saw that, Fiona, but Hikaru was smiling. He's smiling again. He had there you go, full smile now on his face. He obviously finds this hilarious. Magnus is a little bit in the back, and he was looking down at his phone, and he also seemed to be smiling. So I think they both found this quite humorous. And
the moves are coming in, so maybe there's a little delay, maybe
on the cameras.
On the cams. But Hikaru opens once again with knight f3, g3, the same Reti setup.
That's right. So we have a repeat of knight f3, g3. Magnus changes it up from what he played previously. He went for the double fianchetto. That was a bit more provocative. So this is a way more mainstream opening. He just takes over the center. And now we have a reversed King's Indian, right? This is a King's Indian. I guess, I don't know if you would call it a King's Indian attack. Mm-hmm. It's just a King's Indian. Hikaru, of course, is a legend of the King's Indian defense, winning many brilliant, beautiful games, many of which I'm sure are on his channel recapped, especially his famous Boris Gelfand win. So yeah, he needs a win. So he decides to stick with something that has brought him many victories in his career. And objectively, the engine never really loves the King's Indian. It's saying black has, or white, or in this case, black has a big space advantage. But Hikaru is going to get, a very standard style of play. He's going to go for f4 at some point, maybe knight h4. He goes knight g5. So it's a good fighting choice, I would think.
Yeah, and we see both players playing quite fast. I think Hikaru is going to try to maintain as much of his time advantage as he can. The engine, I think you guys in the chat should probably discard the engine for now. I think the engine a lot of times also, in the king, very often in the King's Indian, just does not really understand the position. We're going to get something very fighting here with a lot of pieces on the board. So put your seatbelts on. This is gonna be a big one.
Absolutely. And real quick, I see we have a lot of people just joining us in the chat, viewing this match. There's some questions. Who decides how plays what? Why does Hikaru need to win? This is the last game of today's match, of the finale here. it was a 2-2 tie in the regulation, 4 draws. Then by the rules, the players have to play an Armageddon game. You have to submit a bid for which color you want. You have to submit a time bid to get the right to choose your color. Magnus bid a lower amount of time. He starts with the black pieces. This gives him the option to draw the game, which would win the match. Hikaru must win because this is the game to break their tie. As Fiona, you mentioned earlier today, even though this is the last match of the last game of the day today, it is not our last match because tomorrow we are going to have a continuation. We're going to have what they call the losers bracket, and the winner of that is going to return back into the winners bracket and get a chance to play. Whether Hikaru or Magnus loses today, they're going to have a chance to come back tomorrow, and we're going to see one or both of these players back on Friday. So hopefully everyone kept up with that, and we are going to keep an eye on this game.
And just before we return to the game, big shout out, almost 20,000 of you watching this final Armageddon game here with us. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, very exciting stuff here. Interesting pawn formation that you've just highlighted there.
Absolutely. And you know what I really like about Hikaru? So first of all, we see this bishop h3 again, kind of similar to what he did in his previous game. He has a major weapon, and that is the 6-minute time advantage that he started with. And he still has it. He hasn't let go of the time advantage. Let's look at the position. There are so many pieces left on the board. You know, again, it's too early to think about time scrambles, but you got to think that there could be some point in the game where whatever the objective evaluation of the position is, there's going to be some scramble. There is no increment. You can get flagged here. And again, that's got to be in the back of the players' minds here. Again, we are a long way from that, but nevertheless, you know, that is what you pay. That's the price you pay for receiving your time advantage. Here, Hikaru has a very thematic pawn sacrifice that I'm sure he's seen a million times in his life. E5 takes and F5. This is beautiful. This is like a positional puzzle that I give in my lessons. You sag the pawn, you put the pony on E4, and this bishop here is totally dead. Perhaps king H1, rook G1, and you start an attack here. So the computer is saying this is a very strong option here. I don't know if Hikaru will play it. He decides to play knight H1, doesn't want to take a drastic decision like that. The knight can come back to G3 and F5. So Hikaru is just maintaining the integrity of the structure.
But Hikaru is really going for it. Look at his king. There are no more pawns in front of the king. They have all gone up the board. H4, the G pawn has gone. F4, E4. He's really going for the throat here. And I like his position regardless. I like that pawn sacrifice you showed. But there is still some attacking chances here. Plenty of attacking chances, in fact, with even material. I don't know. Is E5... still a move here? What's going on?
Yeah, still the same idea, but I doubt, you know, if Hikaru didn't do it earlier, you know, he's just kind of rerouted this knight, and then he's given Magnus a chance to maybe consolidate a little bit here. I don't see him pulling the trigger of that just yet. I think it's also, in, you know, perhaps he thinks it's in his interest, and perhaps it is, to keep more tension because you want to keep burning Magnus on the clock and save these possibilities for maybe later in the game. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays like Bishop D2, he plays Queen F3, but Bishop D2 and bring the rook in at some point, right? Just kind of add a little bit of support to these potential breaks. You know, we're going to have E5, F5, H5, so many pawn break possibilities Magnus has to be ready for. And Hikaru obviously doesn't want to rush them. He wants to create a good opportunity for him. Again, I think something like Bishop D2 and bring the rook in, or Bishop D2, King H1, Rook G1. I mean, you can double the rooks in the F or G file. Lots of flexibility to Hikaru's plans here.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that plan. I think there's no need to rush, you know. It's still early stages of the game, move 22. Magnus still has 6.5 minutes on the clock. Hikaru has 5 minutes more. There is no need to do something drastic right now. I love this idea of just, you know, inviting all your pieces to the party. It's such a funny expression, but I really think it makes a lot of sense here. Bishop D2, bring that final rook that's not doing anything on A1 into the game, and then you can start thinking about some pawn breaks once all the pieces are active.
Absolutely. And Hikaru's thinking here, he obviously foresees, you know, these possibilities. He wants to set up in the best possible way to make them optimized. We can talk a little bit about Magnus's position. What has he done? Well, he's gotten a stronghold in the center of the opening that he's obviously maintained with his pawn on D4. And his pieces are well placed, I think, to meet most of these pawn advances, right? He's got tremendous control of the E5 square. And anytime anything opens up, that is going to unleash the power of his pieces here. So it's a very complicated position. You know, we did say not to pay too much attention to the eval bar because, especially the King's Indian, a lot of times the computer, it's not a fond of the structure. It prefers the space. But saying that, now it actually flipped over. It's thinking Hikaru is actually in a good spot. To my eyes, this is just a very, very balanced, dynamically balanced position where both sides, there's a lot of tension. Both sides are kind of waiting to see when is the other side going to go forward. And I think most of these options lie with Hikaru, these opportunities to push. I like King H1. This might be freeing the G1 square for the rook. Also just maybe getting the king out of the way. And Magnus offers this bishop trade. Interesting. So he's not content just sitting still. He wants to create something. I mean, now we can consider takes, maybe not right away, but there's some kind of F5 move that Hikaru can try to implement, opening up the bishop. So that's an interesting choice for Magnus, in my opinion.
Absolutely. Bishop takes e6 after rook takes. There's actually a couple of pawn breaks. There is f5. There's also h5. Yeah, and just trying to open up that black king, as you say, swing the rook over. I really, really like this for Hikaru. Time is evening up somewhat. Still 3 minutes advantage. Of course, I mean, if we get a winning position as white, we don't mind the time evening up. And I don't say this position is anywhere near winning, but I do like Hikaru's chances. Big shout out to our Twitch chat. Over 20K people watching us right now. This is really it. I mean, in 15 minutes from now at the latest, we will know who is through to the grand final. Hikaru is still contemplating his options after bishop e6. If he doesn't take on e6, then of course the bishop on h3 is under attack. So if he doesn't take, he'll either have to move the bishop or defend the bishop. I don't know what I'm most tempted. I don't really want to put the king to h2, looking down the diagonal of that queen bishop battery on c7, d6. So if I want to defend the bishop, I probably have to do it with the queen. But it just feels like we want to maybe lure the black rook to e6 and potentially hit it with a tempo with f5 later.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I agree. Like, it seems if you're not going to take on e6, it's a tough choice. If you go back, it kind of feels like a loss. You just lost this nice diagonal, and the bishop on e6 is well placed. So I don't think that's going to be right. At the same time, if you use your queen, bring it over, you're still making the trade of bishops. I think is just, why not do it at e6? Again, I don't think f5 right away is that powerful because you do need to take care of this knight. Black also gains the e5 square. But again, the dream, just so we can show the chat, what we would love to have happen here is after takes, this knight at f5 is just an absolutely massive piece. Obviously, Magnus would not allow this unless he's absolutely forced to do so. But you can imagine this is going to be quickly a decisive attack for Hikaru, and not to mention the structural weaknesses are quite substantial. So that's kind of the dream, and I'm sure Hikaru is looking at ways to make that dream possible. But again, you mentioned, Fiona, the time is evening up. Hikaru still has a minute advantage here, but yeah, it is Magnus is definitely making up that time. He still has the draw odds, but as you said, if the position is winning, that's okay. That's what all that matters at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Can I just ask chat, what song are you guys singing? I see everyone is going wild. I know there's music playing in the background of us, but what is that song? Please put me out of my misery as Hikaru, as f5 is on the board and Hikaru is thinking how to react to that.
Yeah, he pushes e5, and I like f5 for Magnus because we were just talking, hey, what about e5? What about f5? Excuse me. But he says no more f5 for you, puts these pawns in the light squares with the dark square bishop. Although, still Hikaru goes h5. He's going to try to, we're going to see that king move or maybe the rooks move. If the rooks can go to the h and g files, he's going to try to generate some pressure. The problem is this bishop on d2, it's blocked in. It's not really participating in the fight. I think it has an important role of potentially keeping an eye on these invasions from the queen side. But again, as long as this stays complex and Hikaru stays ahead of the clock, he's always going to have some chances here. And Magnus does something a little surprising, I guess. He takes at h5. He doesn't maintain the integrity of that pawn chain. So that creates a little bit of a weak spot on f5. So for example, if you imagine, like queen takes, that's going to put some pressure on f5. But these pawns are not going anywhere. Rook g1 is played by Hikaru. No doubt we're going to see some kind of doubling. Maybe the rook goes here. These pawns are still vulnerable. So it's complex enough, regardless of the, evaluation, there's still enough pieces and complexity on the board, especially with the kings open, that there's plenty of chances up ahead for really, truly both sides here, I would say, to make something happen.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm quite happy to see Magnus capture on h5 because it just opens up the game even more. It was already such a wild game, but now there will be attacking chances. There will be attacking chances for both sides, actually. Let's not forget Hikaru's king isn't super safe either, but I think, you know, when you are white in the Armageddon, you want that. You don't want a close game where there is not much life in the position. So I think Hikaru is happy here, although what just happened here?
What happened here is there's a massive tactical shot. This is very nasty. We'll see. Oh, and did I just see Hikaru I thought I saw him make a gesture.
Yeah,
it's an insane shot here. After here, the point is that you actually have, oh no, you don't have Rook H6. What am I talking about? Wait, you don't have Rook H6. So what's the point after, let's say I move my king? Do you play F4? You play F4 and then you get Rook H6. I see. So F4 is the key move here. Oh my goodness. So the computer is screaming that this knight e5 move is just crushing. And of course, if black can just get away with this, that's an extra pawn. The good news for Hikaru is that is not on the board. Magnus misses it. That's 6-minute disadvantage.
What a relief.
He is not going to find it. Yeah, that would have been a nasty, nasty shot. But
yeah, I think that was just crushing. Knight b4, and we are still in the game. A minute and a half up on the clock still. Time is evening up, but this is something we have to watch out for. We need to watch out for this queen c6, rook h6 shot.
Yeah, it's the threat right now. You might take this knight here. That's actually a big blunder because all of a sudden, I don't recapture here at all. I play rook h6, nasty, nasty skewer. But the good news is apparently after knight b4, you know, you actually, if you even play a move like king h2, you can allow knight c2 and the computer's saying, yep, you're down this pawn, but apparently you have full compensation with still pressure over here. Again, it's definitely very, very nerve-wracking to constantly having to keep an eye on these shots. But the good news is knight e5 did seem to be objectively crushing, and it was not found by Magnus. Instead, he does take this pawn on c2. Hikaru, he's saying, okay, I'm not dealing with this rook h6 stuff. He moves out of the way, but I guess Magnus has just grabbed a clean pawn on c2.
Yeah, he's probably going to drop the knight back to b4, closing down the b file as b7 is under attack right now. And Hikaru's going to have to find some counter chances here. I don't know, how do we go on about this? One of the things I was thinking is, can I just run with the king back to f4, to f2, maybe to e2, get the king to safeguard the pawn on d3, bring my rooks to the h file, but maybe it's a little slow.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like e2 would actually be a much better square, especially now that c2 is gone. You have pressure on d3. But the other thing is that I was even thinking maybe in some positions, Magnus just plays queen c6, right? Skewering and offering the queen trade, and that's going to take away some of the potential punch from Hikaru's attack. Hikaru's still maintaining that 45-second time advantage. Yeah, I mean, that just goes to show you it's a little crazy. You know, Magnus started with 6 minutes less on the clock, but Hikaru is really, really desperate to try to create these winning chances. That's going to burn you a lot of time. So yeah, we can see that both players really thought out this, bid, 8:58, 8:59. And even though it seems like a lot of time, somehow, they figured out this formula. Hikaru goes for the end game, but how
I think he had no choice, right? Because with the rook pinned on g2, it felt like there was nowhere he could go to. So what is this end game now?
I mean, it's an extra pawn for Magnus, right? But the thing is, if you take on d3, you do allow rook b7, some kind of move like that. That must be what Hikaru is banking on. And I think and this actually does happen in the game. Okay, so Magnus does go for that pawn. Still 3.5 minutes on the clock. That is quite some time. We are used to starting with the 15 minutes. But of course, these guys, they play 3+0, 3+1 all the time when they're playing their blitz games. Perhaps Hikaru can nab this pawn, get a passer. If I'm Hikaru, I'm just thinking of how can I get this game going as long as possible so I can use my extra minute advantage, try to get that flag with, no increment on the clock. But objectively speaking, it is an extra pawn for Magnus here, but it's not like a super simple position because it's actually 2 extra pawns right now. But, you have your passer, I have my passer. There is still complexity in the position.
Yeah, and we see that the engine bar actually likes this a lot less than it did just a couple of moves ago. I think Hikaru's A pawn is going to be much easier to push up the board than Magnus's passed D pawn. I think Hikaru is thinking right now, does he take immediately? And probably this move, knight b2, is the reason why you don't want to capture immediately. So instead, Hikaru goes for knight c1, offering a trade of knights.
Yeah, he wants to take that a7 pawn, absolutely. And the thing is, if he does accomplish that, he's going to be down 1 pawn, but that pawn is going to be a doubled one. And now there must be some kind of rook b6 move, right? Perhaps you can trade rook b6, you get the double attack. Of course, it's maybe this a6 pawn that you really want. Again, I'm not sure objectively if this is all going to be that amazing, but the nice thing is about this pawn at c5 and e5 and f4, it really blocks out this bishop for black. So what does Hikaru do? He plays rook b6 immediately. Okay, so again, still, it's all about getting this pawn. Time watch, Magnus going under 3 minutes. That is obviously going to be key because there is no increment in the Armageddon.
Yeah, it's absolutely crucial, I think, that Hikaru manages to pick up the pawn on a6, and that has now advanced to a5, so Hikaru is going to target it with the bishop. I think he really needs to create something, and that a-passer is that something to at least give Magnus something to think about. Magnus pushing his own pass pawn d3, did not expect that right now.
Yeah, perhaps this is going to open up some future activity for this rook. That could be crucial. If you get this pawn on c4, that's going to open the floodgates for the double c-pawns to come through. Saying that, it does feel like Hikaru is getting very close somewhere. I mean, he's down. It's interesting. He's down 2 pawns, but he has this extremely active rook. These pawns are all targets. I mean, c6 is hanging, a5 is hanging, this king is coming in. And Fiona, I think you can imagine a scenario if he ever picks up a5, he's going to have 2 passed pawns going down the board. That is going to pose lots of practical problems. Already the computer is saying Magnus needs to go king g7. I mean, it's not the hardest move to find because you do set up some kind of plan of rook h8, maybe even bringing the king in. But that was the only move to even remain with an advantage. But saying that, I think this is still complex enough, that there is still counter chances, especially as we mentioned, if Hikaru can successfully find a way to pick off some of these pawns.
Yeah, and I wonder, is now the time to take either c6, probably not a5 because black has rook a8 there, I believe. But maybe take the pawn on c6, I don't know, or Hikaru. I think he's either going to take or wander king further up the board, king f2, king f3. We'll see what he goes for. The time.
He does go still for c6.
He did go for the pawn on c6, which I think makes a lot of sense. Magnus responding with rook d8. And I think, objectively speaking, Hikaru's winning chances are close to 0, but there is still the time factor, which is a huge factor. Magnus now dropping down to the 2-minute mark. So I think Hikaru just has to keep as much life in the position as possible. And he goes for that pawn on a5.
Indeed, he does. We finally get the passed a pawn, but Magnus, he has these easy moves like c4, right? That's just going to build a super strong pawn chain. And the other issue that I have is that, this bishop is going to be liberated now to jump into the game. So, for example, your bishop's hanging, you want to go, he doesn't do it. But I was going to say, if you go like king e3, c4, now you all of a sudden, not right away, but you're going to have to deal with all sorts of these moves. Rook takes d2 would have been a threat. And you can easily see that these pawns are way more advanced than the a pawn. So Hikaru, he creates the pin. a5, that's his only shot. And, okay, let's see. He needs to make something happen. The computer was saying here rook c7, but then, of course, Hikaru probably does not want to go into this position. How is he going to win this? So he's, instead, he wants to keep this pawn alive, but Magnus is doing the same thing. He's got 2 passers coming down, and the time is now officially equal. In fact, Magnus is even up a couple seconds of the clock. This is looking really tough, and I can see Hikaru, he's blowing his lips a little bit. I think he obviously knows that this is probably not going to happen.
Magnus needs to find d2. Well, actually, he doesn't need to find d2. Magnus is saying, I'm just going to play it safe. How are you planning to beat me? I still have 1:40 on the clock. Time has evened up. The position is back to being equal, but unfortunately, that does not help Hikaru. It's really difficult here to see how he's going to create any chances. Magnus doing such a great job of eliminating all the pieces, and I think unfortunately we are headed for a draw here.
And the players just agree. And that was it's a tall order, to win. I mean, this is, again, we saw it. This is the 10th consecutive draw, that we see from Hikaru, first against Wesley, now against Magnus. It turns out, perhaps that, it seems like this was a very, very combative game. Hikaru tried really hard to create chances. He took a lot of risk. He was even in trouble. In the end, they draw the game. Perhaps, if Hikaru bid 857, that would have made him have had to play the black pieces. But ultimately, I mean, these guys are playing such high-level chess that unfortunately it's just so difficult to beat them, to get these players to make mistakes. And yeah, it's kind of, yesterday Wesley So was the victim of this. It's kind of a bittersweet situation where you don't actually lose any games, but you are out of the match. But you're not out of the cycle tomorrow. Hikaru will be part of the losers bracket, and he'll have the opportunity to win those matches, to win that match, excuse me, and make it back to face off against Magnus Carlsen again in the grand final.
I like that someone in the chat, Arget, I can get behind that, seeing the positive in the defeat of this in this match is that we will get to see more Hikaru games. We won't be seeing Magnus tomorrow, but Hikaru will be back tomorrow. We will start as usual at 5 p.m. Central European, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 8 a.m. Pacific. And so the situation is that tomorrow, when we start, we will first look at the best of two match between Wesley So and Arjun Erigaisi. And the winner of that will move on to play Hikaru. I'm not clear. I guess that will also be a best of two match. I think tomorrow is.
I was just wondering if that's a best of two or a best of four, because it is, I guess, the loser bracket final technically. So we have to double check that, because all the matches so far have been the best of two in the losers bracket, but I'm not sure. Maybe it will for the final. It will be 4 games. But either way, we might have actually, I was talking about the Hikaru Magnus rematch, but before that happens, we might have, if Wesley So wins his match against Arjun Erigaisi, we would have a Hikaru Wesley rematch, which we just saw the other day. So lots of rematches potentially looming on the horizon, but that is a positive way to view it. We will see more Hikaru games. If he had won this match, we would only see, maybe 1 or 2 more Hikaru games. This way, we are seeing him tomorrow and then potentially
Alex,
Friday. Yes?
Sorry to interrupt you. We'll actually see Hikaru way sooner than tomorrow, because Hikaru will be joining us for an interview. So that's very exciting. Do not go anywhere. Hikaru will be here with us very soon. And great to hear from him. And we will be seeing some more of his games tomorrow. But don't go anywhere. Hikaru is on his way for an interview.
Exciting news. We're very excited to have him join us, and even more Hikaru than we could have anticipated. And yeah, it'll be very interesting to ask him about, his match with obviously one of his great rivals, Magnus Carlsen.
Absolutely. So we're just waiting now for Hikaru to join us. Let me just find actually one thing real quick. So, Hikaru will be here in a second. It will be interesting I'm sure he's disappointed. I mean, it was such a tough match, all games ended in a draw. I'm sure he'll be disappointed. But the great news, of course, as we mentioned, with this double elimination format, he is not out of the tournament and will be seeing more games soon. I think we just
That's right. I think we'll be joining us sometime soon. Please bear with us in the chat.
Our Mr. Producer, pinging our producer. I don't know if you can hear us. Oh, Hikaru.
Here we go.
Is here. I think. I'm just waiting. Camera should be up in a second. I don't know. Hikaru, can you hear us? No.
Well, Fiona, we were talking about more Hikaru. It seems like there's more of you. I see 3 Fionas on the stream now. So
it's very trippy. So just a minute.
One second, you guys. I don't know why Zoom is such a bad program. Let's leave it at that. Why can't I join? What the heck?
We can hear you now. At least that's
let me try to I don't know what's going on. Let me just try to reboot. Okay.
All right, we'll be waiting.
Yeah, so okay, Hikaru is going to reboot, so we cannot just hear him but see him as well. It's always a delight to have Hikaru join, even after what's a tough match. I think the last couple of days, the fact that he wasn't here wasn't because of the tournament. We all know that he has some family business to deal with, so it's great to have him here. I hope you all remembered, if you missed it, to watch his YouTube recaps. And yeah, very much looking forward to hear his thoughts on what was all in all really an epic match against Magnus.
And yesterday, the recap, if I recall, the match finished, and 30-40 minutes later, the recap was up, maybe a little after that. So that was very interesting too. I checked it out, of course, after we spent we spent time commentating, and so, hey, what did we get right? What did we get wrong? It was very interesting to hear, because those are, right after the matches, right after the games, very fresh in Hikaru's mind. So he was able to present lots of his analysis there. So I'm sure, or maybe I am assuming that we will also get a recap today. That'll be definitely everyone in the chat.
Now you guys can see me, right?
Yep,
we can
see you. We hear you, Hikaru.
Yeah, what's up, you guys?
Well, all good here. We just saw a very close match. I know, unfortunately, in the very end, it didn't go your way. But what are your first thoughts on the match now that it's just ended?
Yeah, I mean, there isn't much that I can be unhappy with. I mean, at the end of the day, I thought I played pretty well. I defended well in 2 games. Third game, maybe for a brief moment, I was optimistic, but it ended in a draw. Fourth game, obviously, I just wanted to go to Armageddon, so I didn't do anything super exciting. Yeah, I mean, I got everything I wanted in this game. I had the 6-minute time advantage. I had the better position. And then I just couldn't find the right plan. I've only looked very briefly since the game ended, but probably around this moment when he played rook takes e6, I think I used like 3 or 4 minutes, and I didn't come up with the right plan. I think I allowed him to go f5 and e5, bishop e7, h5, and I mean, the game was still definitely interesting. It wasn't like I was in a lot of trouble, but I spent all that time, and the time advantage is gone. And it seemed like black's moves were a little bit easier. So I spent the time there, and I just couldn't come up with a plan. But that being said, I still thought that I played very well after that, because it would have been very easy when I blundered this knight before queen c6 rook h6 idea to just fall apart and like lose. I mean, I don't know, lose there, but like game ends in a draw or something immediately, because I could have played knight before knight takes f5. But the problem is that after knight takes f5, there's queen c6, king h2, rook f5, queen f5 check, king g3, rook g6, and I mean, if I go to f2, bishop h4 is winning, and if I go back, obviously it repeats. So I mean, at this point, I felt like it was pretty much over. But then somehow I actually found this really creative idea, where I gave the c2 pawn, and then I found this knight e2, knight c1, and it's funny because I suspect that at some point in that endgame, I probably could have saved it, and well, actually, it was a draw up, so I mean, this doesn't matter, but I felt like around here, I mean, maybe had some chances, but Magnus played very well. He played d3, got the quick counterplay with rook d8, d4, didn't spend too much time doing that, and I mean, it's what it is. So it's obviously disappointing in a way, but on the other hand, it just came down to one game. And I could say the same thing about yesterday too, or the game against Dubov. I mean, those Armageddon games could have gone either way, and it wasn't meant to be. But that being said, again, I'm very happy. I don't think in any way I was the worst player today. It came down to one game. So it's what it is. But at the end of the day, there's always tomorrow.
Hikaru, I have to ask you about the bidding. I have never seen anything like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with
1 second apart.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I was thinking about it, and sort of, I did consider bidding 28 instead of 58, but at the end of the day, it was much like yesterday, where I figured, you know what, if it's 6 minutes and like I don't get chances, well, that's how it goes. But at some point, as you get to like for example, Magnus bid what, 8:58. If Magnus had bid like 7:58, for example, instead of 8:58, had gone like a minute lower, I think I would have won this game, because Magnus would have been like around a minute and a half here. Probably something would have gone wrong. But I mean, at the end of the day, you don't really know like how low is too low. And so I figured, okay, like if he's gonna underbid me and it's more than 6 minutes and I can't get chances, I mean, so be it. But I felt like at 6 minutes, you're gonna get chances. And I did get chances. I just couldn't find the right plan. And that's how it goes. But again, if you're in the situation, you have 6 minutes, you have that time to think, and you can't find it, that's all you can ask for at the end of the day. And so it was definitely surprising that he only underbid me by 1 second. Again, I thought he would probably go a little bit higher. But I felt like if he's going to underbid me at 8:50, less than 8:59, I'll take the 6 minutes and see what happens. I will say, however, that being said, I think that the strategy that like I used or Magnus used, I think if too many people try that and you go too low, there are a lot of people who probably can't bid that low and survive with the black pieces. So It's a little bit unfortunate that I was playing Magnus, but nonetheless, as I said, I mean, there isn't really much that I can be that unhappy with because it just came down to one game. That's all it came down to. And yeah, it just wasn't meant to be. But it could have been the other way. Any of the other two matches could have been the other way too. And at the end of the day, if you ask me, losing this Armageddon to Magnus means a lot less than winning the two matches against Dubov and Wesley and Armageddon, because if I don't win either of those matches, I'm not in the finals or even guaranteed a spot in the next event. So you take everything with a grain of salt. But as I said, unlike probably 90% of the matches that I've lost to Magnus in the past, or games I've lost, frankly, I don't think I played worse than him today. And that again is something that is important, because a lot of the matches I played, I mean, it's not really in doubt who's been the better player for the most part. So, to play the way that I played, I'm very happy, and I'm just generally happy with everything from today, other than the final result. And also, I think I mentioned this, but this last game, I could have fought. If this is a game 4 years ago, after Magnus plays this night before Tactic, I overlook it, I would have fallen apart immediately and not created chances, let alone drawing the game. So there are a lot of positives overall, and the only negative really is that I ended up not winning the match, but that's how it goes.
Well, Hikaru, you're going to have a chance tomorrow. You're going to be playing either against Arjun or Agaisi or Wesley So. And I was going to say, it must be a little bit of a strange, feeling where you don't lose a single game, but somehow, you lose the match. As you said, all 5 draws today against. Yeah, Magnus.
I mean, I would say, the one thing that I would say, though, is that I do think the format's a little bit questionable. I do feel like after the Rapid, there should probably be 2 Blitz games before you go immediately to Armageddon. That is the one thing I will say, is that to me, it feels a little bit weird that you play the Rapid and then you go straight to Armageddon. You don't have 2 Blitz games before. I know in the past they did have 2 Blitz games. And so to me, I that is maybe my one qualm with the format, is I do feel like they should have 2 Blitz games before you go straight. But it's what it is, obviously. And tomorrow what I play, I don't even know when I play. I don't even know how any of that really works. But yeah, I'll play Wesley. I mean, okay, I don't want to say too much, but I think what's the saying? If I say too much, I get in trouble, or something like that. So yeah, we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Yeah, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it will be a best of 2 match, so a slightly shorter. I see in the chat.
It's 2 games. It's 2 games.
I think so.
It's been best of 2 this whole time. We were actually, have to be honest, we weren't completely sure, because it's the losers final, will they do 4? But so far, all those matches are 2 games. So I think it's a 2-game format, and then you potentially can go into your favorite format. It seems, the Armageddon, 3 Armageddons in 1 week. So
no, 4
Armageddons.
You forgot, in the qualifier, I went to Armageddon with Dubov also. So
okay, yes, that's true as well.
It's what it is, But at the end of the day, of course, to be fair though, for Wesley, unlike me, Wesley's not guaranteed a spot, right? Like if you lose me to the finals of the losers bracket, or is he guaranteed a spot? Is he guaranteed a spot? If he loses me in the finals, he is, right? So okay, well
one important thing is he's not yet in the finals. He has. Yeah,
I guess tomorrow. To be fair, it was it's best of 2 games, and when he played Arjun in India, he definitely struggled against Arjun, like I did too. So it's not guaranteed, but I expect to see see a very, very familiar face in the finals.
I see that in the chat, Vishash, who's probably watched the official interview with Magnus, is saying that Magnus in his interview said that he thinks he will meet you again on Friday. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. Obviously, best of 2 is shorter. Armageddons can go any which way. It's hard to know what will happen. But I think at the end of the day, I think the fans enjoyed the match for the most part. Is pretty exciting. And we'll see what happens tomorrow. What happens on Friday. But at the end of the day, I'm overall happy with the way I played today. I'm happy with everything except the result. Really, that's like the only thing that I'm unhappy with. So it's all good. And as I've said before, playing chess is sort of an escape from everything that I'm dealing with. So it's already been more than I expected, frankly, going into this event. Because as people know, I mean, I'll probably be streaming soon enough and talking about it. But essentially on Sunday morning, you know, I got a call and literally I had to book a ticket, fly to California, then get a rental car and drive 3 hours, get here like midnight. Then I was up for most of the night before I played Gukesh, you know, the next morning. So all this stuff and everything regarding this event, and like, even if I were to say lose to Wesley or Arjun, it's already been more than enough for me. So I'm just I'm quite pleased with everything.
Well, Hikari, we certainly send you our support, as well as everyone in the chat. And as you said, you know, it's a vacation for you to play some of these tournaments, and it's also great, you know, fun.
I mean, it's funny because on the other hand, if I hadn't had to fly out here because of everything that's going on, and I had just you know, I'd been in Florida, I probably would have been studying and taking the event more seriously. And who knows what happens then? Maybe then I don't even play as well. So, I mean, there always are silver linings to everything. Everything in life, I think, is what I would say. So, yeah, that's how it goes.
Absolutely, Hikaru. Well, yeah, lots of heart support.
But I do want to say one last thing. I'm sure I'll say this on stream, but you know, I think if there's one thing that I would say, you know, for all the people who are watching and everything, or all the fans of mine over many years, I do actually on some level want to apologize to them, because I think for many years I had the ability to play like this against Magnus, and whether you want to call it mental stuff or whatever, I never did it. So, you know, there were so many fans who I think in many ways they were robbed of this potential for many years. And so if anything, I think I should probably apologize to the fans for being so weak mentally for so many years. So that is the one last thing that I do want to add.
I think you're being a little too harsh on yourself there, maybe.
No, I mean, I'm not being harsh. So I mean, like, I'm a streamer now, so nobody cares. But the reality is that many of the losses to Magnus, obviously, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to say that he didn't outplay me in those games, but many of those games that I lost, you know, I lost in the opening phase. They were not games that were competitive, and I think that, you know, for the fans, they were robbed in some ways, because probably I mean, on some level, maybe I could have played like this in the past. Obviously, I didn't. So for the fans, I mean, they were robbed of some years of some great chess, but that's how it goes.
Well, Hikaru, you have a great opportunity to make up for it if you make it back, and you will get a chance to play Magnus. And if you win that match, you will get a chance to play against Magnus once more. So there could be two more matches in the horizon.
Yeah, I mean that is also the one thing that, I mean, I actually like, the other qualm that I have with the format is, I mean, for Magnus, it's a huge advantage. It's a huge advantage because, I mean, he is the best player playing, and if he makes it to the final in the winner's bracket, I mean, someone has to beat him 2 matches in a row. And that is the one sort of like another thing that I don't love about the format, is it definitely gives Magnus much better chances to win than anybody else. But you know, it's what it is. I mean, I saw in the RCC there was a double elimination bracket. I mean, I played in that, and I think that for Andrejkin, if I remember correctly, he played against Nepo, needing to beat Nepo twice, and I mean, it wasn't meant to be. So it's obviously an uphill battle for sure. But as I said, I literally don't care. I'm just, you know, playing chess, and we'll see how it goes. But it's been good. It's been good.
Well, that's good to hear. Maybe final question. We've been really happy for you to join us. Will there still be a recap coming up today?
Yeah, I mean, of course I'll do a recap. Like, I mean, there's no reason not to do a recap. I mean, I think the main thing is, like, if I'm really tired, for example, like I was in India, I mean, when I got there, jet lag, there were all kinds of things going on. Like, I didn't do a recap every day, but for an event like this, and more particularly, like, I don't really feel like I lost this match. As I said, I played great. It just came down to one game, came down to a couple of critical moves. I had the time, didn't find the idea, but that's what you want. You want to be in that situation. So for me, I'm not upset. So the notion that somehow I'm gonna be like really angry and like not want to do a recap or any of that is, yeah, that's just not how it goes. So of course I'll be doing a recap.
Fantastic. Well, we'll be looking forward to that. Absolutely. Hikaru, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck for tomorrow, and of course thoughts with you, and the chat has been expressing a lot of support as well throughout the day. So yeah, thank you so much, and have a good one. Good luck.
No problem, you guys. All right, I'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, Hikaru.
Bye. Okay, so you heard it there from Hikaru, who's actually not unhappy with the match today, and I think there's no reason. I mean, it was such a close match. It came down literally to the last seconds, and he will be back in action tomorrow. And Alex, I'm sure we both very much look forward to that.
Absolutely. And I just quickly want to point out, I just saw the corner of my eye in the chat. Someone wrote a comment. Sorry, I didn't catch who it was, but they wrote, "You lost the bid, not the match," which is it's an interesting way to look at it because, yeah, I mean, I mean, who knows what would have happened, to be fair, if Hikaru had the black pieces, but yeah, the 1 second differential. But Hikaru, he made it, he said himself, he said, look, you get 6 minute time advantage. Obviously it's a huge boost. And he certainly played a great match, but ultimately Magnus does win the Armageddon. We will have a chance to listen to his recap as well, or you guys in the chat, if you did not get enough of all these games. And Fiona, you and I will be back here tomorrow morning for me, afternoon for you. First, we will be watching the semifinals of the losers bracket. Wesley So against Arjun Erigaisi. The winner of that match will be going on to play Hikaru Nakamura, and the winner of that match we will see on Friday will be having a chance to play in the grand final. Someone has to stop, or someone gets opportunity to stop Magnus Carlsen, who so far has won all of his matches.
Absolutely, that will be fun. Thanks as well to all of you for your lovely comments on the commentary. Nice to hear that you are having fun, that you're enjoying your time here. Thanks for keeping us company. There were so many of you here today, over 20K towards the end of Hikaru's match against Magnus. So we'll see you tomorrow, same place, same time. Tomorrow will be a slightly shorter day, I imagine, with only 2 best of 2 matches. So don't be late. We'll start 11 a.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central European time. For now, have a great rest of your day, great evening, and we'll see you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.